Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome yet again to another episode of Dinner Guide. My name is Chef Andy, and today I have something interesting for you. We're going to be doing something very simple, very nutritious, cost-effective, and very easy to make. We're going to be doing a very beautiful sweet potato that we're actually going to caramelize. We're going to be serving that with some caramelized onions as well. And last but not least, we're going to pair that with a lemon and berry smoothie. So without further ado, we'll start by introducing the ingredients today. So I have some salt, some brown sugar, and some white sugar. I also have some red onion. I've got some beautiful parsley there, a bit of milk and a bit of natural yogurt, some black peppercorns in here. Also a bit of some apple cider vinegar, some olive oil, some beautiful local lemons. Also I have some pre-cooked sweet potatoes. And I also here have some berries. I also have some berry juice, a bit of pineapple juice, and just 2 rings of some sliced pineapple. So we're gonna take a short commercial break now, and if you're going to be taking any notes for this particular recipe, this is your chance to grab your pens and papers. And when we come back, we are gonna dive right into it. So without further ado, see you after the short break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just catching up, we are just about to start a very simple process of making some beautiful dishes today. First off, we're going to be doing some potatoes. So this is a very particular local potato here in Kenya. It's a very, very local sweet potato. So most of you may know that this is actually yellow on the inside. You do get the 2 varieties, but I will insist if you do get one or the other, they will still work the same way for this recipe. So please don't be biased towards those particular pointers. So we'll start off by just cubing our sweet potato. And I'm cutting it into 1-inch chunks. I'll do the same with the second piece. Right, so simple as that. Next off, we'll start by assembling one of the particular containers I like to actually bake this in. I particularly like to use a stainless steel container for the particular reason that it actually caramelizes the sweet potatoes really well. And the beautiful thing about cooking with non-stick or stainless steel baking tins, they're actually very, very good for potatoes. First of all, they will make your cooking much shorter than a glass bowl. And second of all, they're actually much easier to actually work with for the fact that you don't need to actually add any oil to them. So I'm just going to grab one of them here. And I'm just going to use just a regular standard size one, but you're not limited to using this particular size alone. You do get this in very many options. You do get ones that have got the lifted sides, and you do get the flat pans, so each of them will work just the same. So starting off, we'll just grab some sugar. And it's a very, very simple process. I'm just going to start by sprinkling some sugar inside this beautiful container. Simple as that. And next up, we'll just start preparing some of the ingredients that we are going to be using for the sweet potato. So I'm going to actually use just a little bit of lemon, but I'm not going to use the juice of the lemon. We're only going to use the zests or the skin. So I'm just going to take a thin part of that lemon skin there. We can just set that aside. And all you need to do now is take out the inside white part. Remember, this is what actually makes your zests bitter. So we're just going to take off as much as we possibly can. And then next up, just start to julienne the rest of your lemon skin. So this is particularly handy for the fact that it will actually give a very nutritious flavor to your potatoes, and it actually accentuates the colors. You'll actually see it when it's done. So simple as that. We add a bit of oil into a bowl, and then goes in our lemon zests. Then we'll also add our sweet potatoes in there. Then just a bit of sugar and a small pinch of salt. And last but not least, you will also require some freshly chopped coriander. And this we're just going to coarsely chop up. Simple as that. So we're going to be adding about 1.5 tablespoons. And all that's left to do is just mix that really through. Something also I could mention for this recipe, butter works really well if you're actually trying to make it a little fancy. But remember, because we're actually working with cutting costs, we're going to be working with some extra virgin olive oil today. Right, so we'll add just a little bit of oil and a bit of some freshly ground black peppercorns. Right, so mix that through. Simple as that. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to allow those to just sit on the side for just a little bit. Remember, we want them to just absorb the flavors in the bowl before we go into the oven. So it's more like a very, very mild kind of marination. So next off, we're just going to start by preheating our oven. So we're going to raise that to about 200 degrees. That's what we'll be cooking this at. And this should actually be cooking in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes on each side, but you could actually raise the temperature a little higher if you're really looking for a very, very dark color. But as I mentioned, we're only going to be coloring this, so remember, we're only going to be using the elements and not the oven in general. So we're only going to be coloring the tops and then turn them around halfway and color the other side. So this we're going to set aside, and we're going to come back to it shortly. But to that, we also have something in stock for you today. So we're also going to be doing some caramelized onion. Very, very simple recipe. So first off, we'll start by heating up a pan. And of course, our main ingredient, some red onions. So I'm just going to start by cutting those into some half-moon sizes. So first particular thing to remember about onions, if you're going to be cooking them for a long period, especially if you're going to be making caramelized onion, it's really important that you give it quite a bit of thickness. Remember, this particularly helps them to hold the size and the shape, also allows them to continue to decolor really, really well, and it actually helps also for the presentation. So we're just going to be slicing those a little thicker than we would for a salad or for a stir fry. So I would say probably adjust your stir fry chopping technique by maybe about 2 to 3 centimeters. So they should actually be nice and thick. And we'll just continue doing the same to the very end. Right, simple as that. So first off, you're going to start with just a little bit of olive oil. And you're going to add in your onions. Remember, it's particular to not heat your pan too much. Always heat it up just enough to get your oil to sizzle. And remember, because you're making caramelized onion, remember you're not frying them, you're actually just letting them cook in their own juices. So we're going to be cooking this at medium heat. And we're just going to continue tossing them as they continue. So basically very important to actually get the taste of the onion out of your onions before caramelizing. Always saute them for about half a minute to a minute. Remember, that actually allows you to get the pungency out. And once that is achieved, then you can actually continue with the caramelizing process. So simple as that. So just move your onions to the front of the pan. And all you need to do is add just a bit of sugar to the other half of the pan, like so. So I'm adding about 2.5 tablespoons of regular sugar, and I'll also just sprinkle about 1 teaspoon of brown sugar. And all we are going to do now is just give that a shake and just keep tossing. So very important to know that, remember, the onions are going to release a bit of liquid, so you don't actually need to add anything to this pan. All you need to do is just keep sauteing. And as you continue, you will continue to notice a color change, and the aromas of the sugar are also going to start really popping out. Something also to remember, sugar caramelizes very quickly. It only takes sugar about 4 minutes to caramelize on a regular hot pan. And it is also important to remember that it's also crucial to continue mixing your caramelized onion, for the fact that if you do have a few of those sugar particles in there that doesn't melt really well, remember it will actually get to its boiling stage where it forms some more like crystals, and these actually make your caramelized onion very distasteful. So very particular to remember. Before you add your sugar in there, always take a bit of time. Even if you're going to be using a sieve, just sieve your sugar, at least be able to pick out those big granules, because once they go into the pan, you can't actually get them to caramelize. Right, so we're just going to keep tossing that and allow that to continue for about another 4-5 minutes. But in the meantime, I'm just going to bring your attention back to the sweet potatoes we had earlier. So very simply, I'm just going to grab a pair of tongs. And remember, this is a container we'll be baking our potatoes in. So very simply, just a bit of olive oil at the bottom with the sugar. So remember, the olive oil does two particular things. It will actually give an emphasis to the color, and it will actually flavor your potatoes. Remember, you are serving some grilled potatoes, some baked potatoes, so you do want that beautiful savory balance to it. Right, so our onions are nicely looking brown. We'll just lower the temperature and allow that to continue. And in the meantime, we're just going to move our chunks of sweet potato onto the baking tray. Right, so simple as that. And now all that's left to do is just using your fingertips, just grab the rest of that mixture remaining. Remember, you've got some lemon zest in there. You've also got a bit of some freshly chopped coriander. And to that, I will add just a little bit of sugar. Just mix that through really well. And last but not least, just about a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, or even white vinegar will still do the trick. Just mix that right through like that, and all that's left is to just sprinkle those right on top of your sweet potato rounds. And simple as that. Now this is now ready to go into your hot oven. Just gonna throw that in there, and we're gonna calibrate our timer to about 10 minutes, and I'm also going to adjust to the top element. Remember, we're only going to be coloring them. And to the pan here, as you can see, the sugar is now just starting to bubble, so you know it's just about ready to come out. Also, just something that always helps to cut sugar once it's actually starting to bubble, a bit of vinegar. And then just shake your pan and toss. So you will actually get a beautiful pungency from the vinegar. This actually, as you can see, just allows you to just dissolve a bit of those brown sugar crystals. And all that's left to add to that is a bit of that pineapple juice. And last but not least, some fresh coriander as well. I'm just going to chop that really coarsely. So I'm going to be adding the stems and the leaves. Right, so all you need to do now is give that a mix. And now all you need to do now is lower your temperature to the lowest point you possibly can, but particularly for the fact that I'm using a burner that's a little big and it's still going to radiate quite a bit of heat, I always like to move it to the smallest burner I have. So we'll just slide that to the end here. And we're just going to allow that to continue cooking, allow all that liquid to just evaporate, and what is left behind is a very, very beautiful consistency of caramelized onions. So we also have one last thing to do today, and basically that would be the smoothie that I mentioned to you all earlier. And that is also a very, very simple recipe, as I said. Just going to grab a fresh board and a small knife. And I'll also need a blender, so definitely important to have one for this particular technique. And all that's left to do is to incorporate the ingredients you have. So I'll start off with a bit of the berries. I'll also add a bit of that berry juice. And then we're also going to be adding about 2 teaspoons of sugar. Remember, this is actually not to sweeten the smoothie, it's actually to cut the bitterness of the berry juice. And then we'll also add half a cup of milk. And I'm also using some natural yogurt. Remember, this is the healthier option. Remember, this doesn't come with any additional sugar to it. But if you are feeling a little under the weather and you feel like spicing up your smoothie, and if you you can't find any natural yogurt or some Greek yogurt, vanilla yogurt will still do you just fine. But something also to remember when you're picking your yogurts, it's always handy to just read your labels, always compare the fat and the carb contents, quantities. That will actually aid you in being able to know which is the best yogurt you could go for. Right, so just to finish that off, we're also going to be adding a bit of lemon juice. I'll just grab a small sieve just to get the seeds out. And all you're going to do is just squeeze right through. And if you have your sieve, particularly for this process, it does save you the process of having to squeeze your lemon juice and then have to take your seeds out. So this actually makes it a little easier. Right, and we'll add just another half lemon. Right, so about a lemon and a half of juice. And last but not least, we'll also be incorporating just a bit of zest. Now, zest is basically that beautiful green skin on your lemon. And the beautiful thing about zest, it actually lifts the flavor without altering the taste of most dishes or most drinks. So very handy to actually use, and it can actually be able to go as far as you can actually be able to grate a bit of that into your caramelized onion as well. Lemon zest always just gives a nice, beautiful lift to most dishes. So we're just going to grate that in here. So I'm just going to go around and just go down once as you rotate. Remember, you may want to actually, you may be tempted to grate at one particular position continuously, but remember what happens is you do get to that inside part of your lemon that starts to get very bitter. So very important that when you're doing your zesting, always just go down once, turn your lemon once, go down again, keep turning until you get to the very end. And that should be just about enough. So I'm going to be adding about 3/4 teaspoon of lemon zest to that. And now this is now ready to go into our blender. But first off, I'm just going to direct your attention to the side here. Just going to give those onions a quick mixture. And something I could show you as well, as you continue to make your caramelized onion, you will actually be able to realize that the onions should actually be just sliding down your pan really, really gently. So once you get to that particular stage, very crucial that you continue mixing through. This just allows the liquid to evaporate a little faster. And all that's left behind now is some very, very beautiful looking caramelized onions. So now these are done. We're just going to turn down the heat. And we're going to give those a few minutes to cool off. In the meantime, I'll bring your attention to this other side. Remember, we're going to also be serving that with a very light smoothie. I'm just going to blend that quickly. Right, so this is now nice and light. So this is basically as simple as it is to actually get through such processes as caramelizing, and you've been able to see it in two ways. You've been able to see it with some potatoes, you've been able to see it with the onions, and now we're going to slide into a short commercial break, and when we come back, I'm going to show you what you can actually what more you can actually do with this beautiful caramelized ingredients, and just some pointers on how to plate. So please don't touch that dial, we'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are just tuning in, we have just been doing some very, very beautiful things on set today. We were doing some caramelized onions and we were doing some sweet potatoes that are in the oven and they're done. So we're just gonna start by taking those out. All right. So these have been sitting now in the oven for about 15 minutes. So I would say to get them perfectly to that state, it will probably take you at least an hour. So which means you'll probably need about 20 to 30 minutes of pre-cooking, give it about 10 minutes of cooling, and then just throw them in the oven. So this should actually take you a beautiful 1 hour from start to finish. And we're just going to jump ahead into the plating. I'll just grab a spoon. Right, so very, very simply, first of all, we start by moving our potatoes out of the plate. Onto the plate, sorry. And as you can see, some beautiful colors there. I'm just going to toss them around a little bit in that oil. All right. Now we'll just go ahead to plate. And as I'd mentioned earlier, you can be able now to see the difference in the colors. Maybe if I can just place this down and show it to you. So if you can be able to see from this particular end of the potato. So remember, this is the side that was actually on the top, and this is the side that was on the bottom. And as I'd mentioned, you do actually get that beautiful ring color from the skin and just a bit of browning in the center. So this would probably be the side that I would serve on top. So we're just going to add just one more piece. And next up, our caramelized onions. As I said, also something very similar to what I had shown you before the break, but now this has been cooling off for a bit of time. And something also to pay attention to, I also like to always just move my spoon right across. And if you notice that your onions still hold the position that they're sitting on, then that means they're perfectly cooked. So we're just going to scrap those with a spoon. And this can now just move onto your plate. Right, simple as that. So now you've probably now gotten a few tips of how to really get a good caramel out of your onions and how to really get the beautiful colors of your sweet potatoes. But just to finish that off, I would naturally serve those with some slices of pineapple on the sides. Pineapple is always refreshing. And remember, after having something that's been cooking in a bit of sugar, you always need a bit of acid that just washes that down and makes it a little easier to enjoy the dish. Pineapple slices are very good for that option. And now, last but not least, we also have a berry smoothie that we are making earlier. So we're just going to just blitz it slightly, just to refresh it and to remix it. Right, so it's got a nice, beautiful thickness to it. I'm also going to show you something to also check with smoothies. Very particular that smoothies always have this more like a light, milky kind of consistency. And if I can show you that with the back of the spoon, you should actually, for berry smoothie, you should actually be able to just watch the bubbles. You should actually be able to see a little bit of bubbles coming off the back of your spoon. And next off, you should actually be able to just run your finger right across, and it should be able to hold that open space for at least about 2 to 3 seconds. That should tell you that your consistency is just right. So we're just going to move that into a glass. Simple as that. And just to finish that off, remember, if you're going to be doing something for your family, it's always also nice to put a bit of love in it, show off a little bit, show off a bit of technique and a bit of love to your food. I'll just garnish that very simply with a slice of lemon. Right, so using a spoon, just take as much seeds as you can out of it. Put a slice right from the middle all the way to the out. Slice of lemon on the side of your glass and a straw to go with that, and that can be served as it is. So I hope you have actually enjoyed watching the show today, and I hope you've actually picked up something that you can improvise in your own home kitchen for you or your family. From my end, I have enjoyed it. I have definitely had some fun today. I will remind you that we are also on YouTube. We have so many videos out there. Do have a look. So many stuff, so much stuff to actually learn from. Also check out our Facebook page. We're also looking forward to always hearing from you. So always do leave your comments, do leave your inquiries, any questions that you may have pertaining this episode or this particular show, and me and my producers will be looking forward to getting back to you. So from my end, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to enjoy my dinner now, and I hope you're also going to do the same. So until the next episode, have a lovely evening.